Okay, the bells are ringing, the dog is barking, the morning is shining, and we are going to talk about the Trinitarian causality in the Word. We are going to see the connection that exists in between these two concepts of the Trinity and the Word, meaning the Word of the Bible as the basis for creation. We're going to arrive to the conclusion that the three in one is the inner structure of the unity itself. And it explains the process of causality, the process of causality. The Trinity explains this process of return as cosmic salvation, not so much of going to hell or going to heaven, but as what happens cosmically to the whole of the universe through the incarnation of the Word and the process of creation, which is the operation of the triune God. So why is this important? When we think about ultimate causes and we are in the search for truth, we need to look for ultimate causes. We need to look for ultimate truth. We need to recognize that there is an ultimate truth. If we call this ultimate truth nothing, even if we call this ultimate truth nothing, that must be the truth from which everything stems, from which everything is created. Therefore, in its manifesting, this nothingness, if you choose to call it like that, has to have embedded in it a process by which we can discern that this world came into being and how and on which basis. Yeah? And this is why this is still relevant today, and this is why this intellectual in the 9th century was digging so deep to try to find out about it. All things are from him. This is a quote from the Periphysium, book number 3. And through him, and in him, and for him. Beginning in all creative activity is Trinitarian. Think about that for a second. God makes all things co-eternally in the Word. So we're going to see how this concept of the Word is explained. And of course the basics for that Origena as a Christian philosopher takes is the Bible. And you don't really need to go much further than that, because the beginning of the Gospel of John is one of the most profound paragraphs that you can find in all literature of the world and history. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life. That's John 1 through 1 and 4. There's other quotes from the Bible that Origena takes as the basics for his further reasoning about this. And we have here this one: for in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible. We could say also knowable and unknowable, created and uncreated. Things that represent being and also non-being. Also, in the Psalms, we have, O Lord, how manifold are your works. In wisdom you have made them all. That means that there is a wisdom behind the creation of the universe. It's not just a chaotic evolutionary type of process based on the survival of the fetus or the species. Never mind when we're talking about the whole of the universe and the capabilities that conscious beings have and the relationship that these conscious beings have with the reality, which is the core of the problem, really. If there's some evolution that happens biologically, of course we can accept that, but that's not the core of the problem. You can't situate the whole of creation within that frame. My opinion, at least. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, that's the beginning of the whole Bible in Genesis 1. Also in the Psalms, number 110, which we're going to develop a little bit about this one. In the beginning, in the day of your power, in sacred splendors before the day star, in the womb I begot you. So Origen's interpretation of this psalm, meaning in the beginning, in the womb I begot you, we can say that it's important to understanding of divine generation. So he takes this as a proof, as the core of divine generation, of creation itself. With three and in three is eternally the beginning of all things, that is thy word. He is talking directly to God, almost like as a prayer, from Origen, from the Periphysium itself in book number 2 and number 4 here. So we have here a link of the generation of all things in the beginning with the generation of the ineffable word from the Father's womb. No man nor celestial powers can know or of the generation of the word from the Father. So we are here still hooked in this mystery that speculation about these things cannot really be grasped by the mind. However, we must go about in an apophatic way in order to find out about the basic truths that underlie these principles. The Father begets the Son eternally from the secret recesses of his womb. So the Father begets the Son eternally from the secret recesses of his womb. We have seen that the Father could be understood at this division of nature in which the Father would be the uncreated. And it's the uncreated, non-creating that actually is at the source of the uncreated, which is creating, which will be the Son. And his substance simultaneously creates the causes of all things in the world. And the Holy Spirit will be that which organizes all of that. The Spirit, the proceeding, will be the proceeding of the causal factors that bring about reality, that bring about the universe, that bring about nature itself. Is the distributor of the causes. So you see, it's not just idle talk that we have to make these divisions, because we are looking for the ultimate. So this ultimate must have a structure in its unity. Okay? So, but it's embedded in mystery, of course, and it's all simultaneous, and it's all within the same being or non-being, depending how you look into it. So then we have this statement I found this is an isolated statement, but I have isolated it because I thought it was very profound. Because the return of all things takes place according to proportion. This is in the Periphysium and capacity as well. So this is very important, because as we move forward with this, and I start to reveal exactly why are we talking about this topic, is very important to distinguish that the infinite has nothing to do with a scattered universe in which we cannot put our finger on any cause, we cannot use our rationality, and we cannot infer anything from these very profound statements. The opposite is the reality. This connects with so many actual, present worldwide human issues like morality and economics and politics and scientific discoveries, how we apply technology, what is our place in the world, in nature, as meaning the earth, and what we're doing to it. Yeah. What is the principles by which we can infer the rights of humans as to how to interact with each other? All these questions actually stem from this. And I chose to spoke about it a little bit because the return of all things takes place according to proportion, as well as the origin of all things takes place according to proportion. The fact that this proportion is infinite, yeah, and we can get into mathematics at some point as well, but I need to study this with a little bit more precision, is because mathematics gets into this really interesting dynamics during the 20th century with David Hilbert and Russell and Gödel and all these great geniuses that thought about these matters actually from the mathematical point of view and created this system of logic that is actually very interesting to delve into, because what the medievals were actually struggling with, we are still struggling, yeah, and it's at the core as to what the solutions are, to find truth and extrapolate from that the solutions for the world. We're not going to extrapolate just from empirical research, yeah, or from politics, or from just being nice to each other. I'm sorry, but that's not the core of the problem. The core of the problem lies in being itself. So we need to delve into that. Anyway, so inspirations. So the inspirations for everything that Erigena is saying here comes from various theologians, especially Basil of Caesarea, Gregory of Nyssa, and above all St. Augustine. Augustine will talk about this thing about the Trinity in theoretical terms, and Erigena has a more historical approach. He also is going to take it from the natural sciences point of view, and his sources are Pliny and Marcianus Capella, yeah, which were the sources for natural science of the time. So those are his sources, and one section in the Bible that is very good to understand what we are talking about here and what the approach of Erigena is Matthew 17 verse 2, which says, "There he was transfigured before them." So Jesus was transfigured before the disciples. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. And this could be interpreted as a dialogue that happens actually between the scriptures, which could be the clothes that became as white as the light, and the physical reality. So by observing very carefully physical reality, we can access the divine combined with scriptures and revelation and contrast the two. Yeah, I think it's very important to never go in one direction, to always take different approaches and try to reconcile them. So Erigena also uses the method, apophatic method, when it comes to natural science, but he doesn't develop it that much as with metaphysics. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide. Let's just get there. So we're going to now make a conciliation between the Word and the Trinity. So we're going to be talking about the two and see how they both correlate. Okay. So the Father, as we have said, is the unbegotten and begetting, which begets the Son, the begotten, the Spirit, the proceeding, which reflects the dialectical method of the division of nature in the Periphysium. The Father is the cause of all causes, the cause of the cause that is born, that is the Son, and the cause of the cause that proceeds, which is the Spirit. So we are confronted here, historically, this is very interesting because it touches on the filioque problem, which is the question of, okay, what is the procession here? Is it the Father that begets the Son and the Son the Spirit, or is it the Father that begets the Son and the Spirit? Eurygenea chooses, with the Greek fathers, to choose this one. So what Carabine says here is that Eurygena's discussion of the ousia and hypostasis, which would be the essence and the substance of God. So Eurygenea goes with the Greek formulation of the Trinity. However, later there's going to be a massive problem within the church that created the schism in the church, but already in the 11th century. So the culmination of this problem, at least from the intellectual point of view, not so much the political point of view, is going to be based on that. And Eurygenea chooses, on the basis that the argument that he's going to make rests on the nature of causality in the physical world. So Eurygenea cannot accept that things can come from two causes. Therefore, he chooses this procession that goes from one to the Son, so from the Father to the Son, and from the Son to the Spirit, without betraying the whole unity of this procession. But he chooses this one over this one. So the Spirit proceeds from the Father through the Son. Yeah? So it is therefore from one cause, and in Latin it will be ex patre per filium. So Spirit proceeds from the substance of the Father, not from the Father's essence. So he makes a distinction here between essence, which will belong to the realm of non-being, actually, in the whole scheme of the Tractatus, and substance would be more like, substance would be this, the substance of the Father would be the Son, and from that substance stems the Spirit. So but Fathers is very important, Father, Son, and Spirit. They are not natures or operations, but they are relational. Okay, so the way of arguing these things is from the unity, is not making a separation. It's not like cutting a watermelon and then putting it all together. It's a unified watermelon that has, well, that was a very, very bad image to use, but you get what I'm saying. So divine causality, creation, the Father is isness itself. The Son is wise. In wisdom, God made all things. And Spirit is what lives. So if you think about it, the connection that you have, and this is why preachers, they always talk about the connection with the Holy Spirit. Spirit is life. Okay, so God at its core, actually in the procession that we can perceive, the light that we can see within the air that we cannot see, that will be his essence. Yeah, that's why we don't have to be afraid of darkness, because in the darkness is where the actual essence is. Yeah, but we cannot see it ever. Even when there's light from the Spirit, we're not going to see the air in which this perturbation is happening. We're going to see the light. Yeah, and that's what the Spirit is, and that's what life is. So the contrast comes when we are talking about life itself, about the things of life, the things that really pertain to actual human beings. The way to approach it is, so what side of the infinite I'm in? I'm in the side of the light that gives you life, or are you on the side of the vacuum, not so much the darkness, but the vacuum that is zapping the life out of you? For example, the fact that you have to have an ID, or pay taxes, or obey the government. Yeah. So this, or the fact that you have to use fake money in order to survive. All of these are systems which are nothing in the privative sense. that they are zapping the life out of you. They're taking the life out of you for the benefit of others. And this is what we can affirm to be Satanism. Okay? So when we have these divisions between good and evil, Satan and the devil, we can define it in very precise terms in reality. We don't need to get to the religious. Yeah? However, those images are very useful because they help you to actually to at least pronounce the insult when you don't have the time and the energy to say how outrageous the whole bloody system in which we live in is. Okay? So we have infinity, we have the actual manifestation of the mystery of creation when we think about it, from which life stems, and all the truths that stem from that cannot be negated because they are embedded in nature and the nature of things themselves. And then we have those who say that because we cannot use rationality to its very end without finding problems with it, who will tell you, then let's just get rid of it. Everything is relative. Nature is scattered. Humans are just simply animals that they don't know what they're doing. And in their thinking, they cannot access reality. They cannot access the other. Yeah, the other is the devil. Yeah, Jean-Paul Sartre, that was his conclusion. And therefore, there's no basis for actual morality grounded in objective truth. And actually, those two worlds stem from the same problem. It's just that one takes it in the privative sense, yeah, and it becomes murderous. And the other one takes it in the actual sense. It makes it creative, makes it moral, and makes it beautiful and good. Yeah? And we are always dancing between the two. Yeah? This is why I'm doing these presentations, because I think it's very important to get to what these distinctions are and take it from the divine. We have to realize that creation, this thing that we're talking about here and trying to elucidate its structure, the divine is at the essence of things. So life is divine, nature is divine, you are divine. Good, okay, so having said that, maybe you had time to read all of this and I don't have to do it? Okay, no, let's do it. So, in regards to the Word, we can say, and it's connected to the Trinity, so this scheme here will be related to the Trinity, and this one here will be related to the Word. And we see in the Periphysium, in the book number 2, before his visible world proceeded through generation into genera. Genera will be like a classification of being, a very Platonic concept in which the things that we see, the things that we understand, will live in actuality as created, in this case in the Christian view, by God. Yeah? And from then, all, in the Neoplatonic sense of the Christian view, all those emanations will be at the source of creation itself, the creation that we can smell, see, and touch and think about, yeah, and feel as well. So God the Father brought forth his Word, in whom and through whom he created primordial causes of all natures. So the Word is a very adequate concept because we can imagine from the silence this primordial God pronouncing the word, which will be the vibration, if you will. It's not a vibration, it's just what's at the core of all the primordial causes of everything else that we know in the world. Yeah. So the word is the principle. So the word as a principle, this is very important distinctions. Through whom, whom, so it's personal, it's living, it's alive. The Father speaks creation. And first principle of the divisoria, of the division of life, of nature through all things. And it's also the principle of resolutiva. So it's at the source of creation, the origin of things, and it's at the source of the resolution. From that creation, from that expansion, then comes a resolution that comes back to God, to the same principle, and the two are the two polars of the same thing in which all manifestation takes place. So dialectic, division, and resolution prefigured in the activity of the Word itself. Okay, when it comes to the Trinity and how it connects with it, which we're going to get in here, so we have spoken about the filioque problem, so it connects with that. Historically, it's very interesting also to explore. But let's say the Spirit proceeds from the Father through the Son, from one cause, ex patre per filium. We have already said this argument. So the argument rests on the nature of causality in the physical world. So what are we addressing here, and why is it relevant for our lives? Because we're addressing causality, and causality is one of the main distinctions, that starts from very clearly distinguished in the categories already of Aristotle. So it's nothing new here. It's just a Christianization of those concepts, really. So it's 3 in 1. So the Trinity and the Word is 3 in 1. Inner structure of the unity itself explains the process of causality. Not so much causality itself, but that causality, but this is the cause of that, and that comes from that cause. So the cause and effect are also, you cannot really view them on the view of Original's ultimate cause and effect as something that one happens before and after the other. Trinitarian concept of causality in Periphysium is the cosmic force gives life, also tension between causality and transcendence. So this is the methodology, the constant tension that happens with the methodology to talk about these profound things which Original has to use. So it's not only, we're not talking only about cosmic salvation, which will be in the realm of the resolution, but also of the process of creation itself, which will be in the regarding creation. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. It's credit here comes for the author of the book that we are going through, which is Deirdre Carabine. Remember, it's an Irish scholar who's actually living in Africa, and it's a very excellent explanation about this very, very long and difficult tractatus of the medieval ages. So we'll continue with this in the next chapter.